weird paintings. I love them so much. Just the smallest amount of preparation that we did earlier, I'm even more excited now. So I don't want to waste any more time. Everyone wants to hear from you. But I will just say, before I ask you to just kind of like tell everyone what we're looking at, you know, these are paintings made this time, whatever. The first question I asked you when we met is, am I imagining that these are figures? Because they present so strongly as abstractions, but then you see one, and you're like, no, that's definitely a portrait, kind of. And then you go back and you look again, and when I walked into this room and saw this sculpture here, I thought, okay, I'm not imagining it. This is happening in the work, and that made me even more excited to talk to you. So just let everyone know a little bit about kind of what you're looking at, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so this is all work for the last 6 months, basically. And you're right, these are what I call figurative abstractions. Okay. So they are based on a body, and based on, you know, I'm an artist that has a body, and I base my work on my own feelings of the body and imagining of bodies. And bodies can be both alive and maybe furniture. Furniture can also be bodies. I'm the way I think about it.
Well, they're objects that were made with the body in mind. So they're body adjacent.
Body adjacent.
Yes, there.
And most of this work is about transformation. It's about the transformation of one state to another state. And some of it you can see more literally, but that's where the work is coming from. Also, it's also a strange thing to try to create movement, transformation in a static object. But I'm very fascinated by that question. How do we create a sense of movement in something that is so still as a painting?
Right, and not even sequential, but like one complete self-contained image.
Absolutely.
That's such a great question, and I mean, I think that you're solving it in a couple of different ways in each picture, right? One way is, like we were talking earlier here, and I'm thinking like, am I supposed to be thinking about the Bauhaus a little bit? I'm thinking a little bit about Paul Klee and Andy Albers, right? And that thing where you know enough about color and you're such a deft organizer, engineer of the color story that takes your body through your eyes, and that creates, right, that kind of thing. So maybe, yeah, just if you wouldn't mind allowing, you don't have to tell everyone like your secrets, but you know, you ask yourself that question: how do you create a sense of movement and transformation within a single static image? So, how do you do that?
Well, part of it, I think that's really right. Part of it is the color story. You're absolutely right. And I think a lot of these paintings can have a longer color, or red color, and not color, because that's the color that gets mixed into all the other colors. And that becomes the tonal kind of overall, you know, color feeling in the painting.
And see, that's the kind of thing that people maybe don't even see, but definitely perceive. That is fascinating. Is each one different? Or is it a few that you prefer? Or?
Well, some of it, I guess I call it darker work. Dark paintings. Those are paintings that definitely have more of the ultramarine of the color. Always just back with the dark blue. Some of the others have maybe more of the red, some more older ones.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because now, of course, you're looking, right? And so what happens is when you learn or perceive something like that, your brain wants to go in deeper and kind of solve that mystery and pull that dynamic a little bit apart. And then that's another way of creating change because you've got the person's attention over time. And the deeper they look and the more details come out, the painting literally does change in front of them.
Well,
right?
That's the strange thing about a static object that you engage with, when you start engaging with it. It's like you are having a conversation and there's this collaboration happening and then it becomes movement. And it's movement that goes back to you as
and your body.
And your body, yes.
do it and go, oh, does that feel right? It's not science, right? So you're feeling your way through it, and when it works for you, that's when it works for me. But also, even though it's so organic, the palette, I would probably say, doesn't scream organic, right? Like, these are colors, it's not that they're not found in nature, but it's not, it's gem tones, some of this really rich kind of rust, ochre. It's not that they aren't, but it's a tertiary palette, it's eccentric. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how you became attracted to using colors that you wouldn't necessarily associate with the life of the body in order to investigate that topic.
So color is very collaborative with the environment, right? I mean, we're in a color environment, and some of these paintings were completed while I was right on the sound and on future sound. And there's a lot of light, and actually that makes the paintings darker. So that there's a way that the light kind of focuses the painting, creates it's overwhelming light, so that then the painting needs to go darker. And I don't know how to explain that, but that's one of the things that happens.
Like when you're working, the natural light is so sort of, you need to stand up to it.
Yeah, I think that's the way.
Or sort of balance it. Because it's not quite shadowy, but it does have a kind of twilight quality to it, I guess. That Nocturnal, okay, beautiful. So nocturnes as well. And that's really, and then I know we spoke a little bit though, since you brought up the light and Puget Sound, about nature. Because when I first asked about the palette, you said, oh, it comes from nature. And I was like, okay, if you say so, let's talk about that more later. But, maybe like pull that apart a little bit more, because I'm guessing you don't, like, they're nocturnes, but you paint during the day because that's when the light. So I think we would all love to hear a little bit more about sort of your relationship to the natural world, not only the body, but the entire world, and kind of like how you choose what to distill from that to include in the composition.
I'll try.
Right?
So
You see what I'm asking?
I actually started as a painter.
Okay.
So I started my whole career as an artist doing landscapes. And it was for me one of the most
given to you similarly to how physical dimensional space recedes or advances, even without depicting that, right? Yeah. See, that's here it is. Yes. But I love that because I think what I love about work like this is that, you know, there's so much room for the viewer to figure it out, not figure it out, love it anyway, love it, buy it, bring it home, figure it out a year later suddenly for no reason. I mean, you know, there really is, there are these kind of nested universes inside each one where you can have a different experience of it depending. I can imagine a world in which the light in, say, my house would activate the orange in this one behind you in a way that would make it sexual all of a sudden, as opposed to, you know, positive, negative space. And all of that stuff is creating all of that sense of movement. And yet I look at it, and then, like I said, many hours before, I think about, you know, the painting that responds in some way to how textiles are made, you know, that kind of idea.
The stripes are kind of like, they feel almost like weaving at stripes. And they relate back to a whole series of drawings that I did like 20 years ago that were very, very much like.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, textile is body adjacent too, really. I feel like that. No, but I think they're fantastic. And so some of them, I think, like, you really see like a proper, like, schematic, like, body part. Like the one over there, the black, the extended leg, walking forward. Maybe there's a four-legged creature facing that person. This one, they've fallen down, poor darling. You know what I mean? But, like, suddenly you start to see them. I see a chair now. And I love that you as an artist are not only tolerant of that, but actually excited to elicit that from your viewer. Many artists are a little bit more precious or controlling or specific about what it is. And, you know, the last thing you want to do is walk up to them and go, I see a person in your painting. But actually, we all have permission to see it because it's in there.
And it's super awkward to be a body, you know, like there's it's funny and awkward and weird. And so these are about that too.
And it changes over time.
And it changes over time.
And how we feel doesn't always match with what other people see or whatever. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, and that's the thing, it's like the expansiveness of this is really very appealing because you can have a lot of different conversations. Are there, when you are putting a figure or a person, a creature, a face, is that like deliberate? Does it happen and you recognize it and let it stay? Do you even have like someone specific in mind, even though it's not a portrait? Like,
yeah, no, I'm not really specific, but they do come out of drawing. So I have a daily drawing practice where the figures are, it's really all figures in those drawings. And so those influence, they're not a one-to-one ratio. They're not like schematics for paintings, but they're definitely influences.
And at what point do you decide this one's going to be like really a person? Or is it again something that kind of happens as you're going?
Yeah. Well, I think with the paintings, this is going to get weird.
And Lauren's good weird girl.
As beings, anyway, they come themselves, and if I know that they're themselves, then I can move on. So they kind of tell me, so there's a little bit of that.
story, give me the story. If there's no story in the image, then I start looking for the story somewhere else. What's it made of? How is it made? Something, anything, right? Because our brain requires that. And one of the things about abstract work, I mean all work, but you really lean into it in abstraction because that's what you have, is the emotional signature of colors as well. So it's not only how they behave optically in a flat or textured surface in certain order and juxtapositions, and all of that proper color theory stuff that you obviously know exactly what we're doing with tints and tones and all of that. But colors have emotional signatures as well. So maybe you can talk a little bit about where that comes into the equation. Before, during, after, is it like therapy? Do you know ahead of time, etc.?
Well, I think that goes back to the mother color,
Okay.
where the color, it's very intuitive. So it definitely is, part of the moment that I'm in, and feeling is, I hope feeling that that whole, and that is going back to the Bauhaus and early abstraction. I know, but that is kind of how I'm looking at it. Is that feeling, the color feeling coming from the floors. And so there is a way that the mother color is the color that then becomes the key color in the painting, just feeds, through the painting. And then that does have an emotional signature, you're absolutely right. I know how it feels to me, I'm not sure how it feels to everybody else, because I think color is super sensitive. So,
But how do they feel to you? Let's just vibe check. How are we all feeling? But, this purple, for example, is so seductive.
It's very, for me, nocturnal and kind of like how we have to look at it. That's how I feel.
But not scary.
No, not scary, actually. About it's transforming. That's how it feels a space that's transforming. That's I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's funny because colors will, there's color theory, it's pretty solid, but everyone's gonna have their lived experience associations with them. If their childhood bedroom was purple, and they had the best or worst childhood, that's gonna change how they feel about purple. There's nothing you can do about that, even though we're told it's serene or it's meditative or it's the crown chakra or whatever it is, right? Yeah. Yeah. And then the orange, same thing. Is it what is it? I really, really, really want to spend a minute talking about this orange. Because A, it's obviously very important to you. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is not purple.
No, it's not purple.
This is like